Welcome to the Stuff and Things Podcast, your home for all stuff related to your favorite things in entertainment. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everyone, we are back for another episode of the Stuff and Things podcast, speaking about the episode When We Are in Need from the hit show from HBO, The Last of Us. It is me, Stefan, and I'm joined once again by Kaylee.
Hello! Hello!
How are you doing, my dear?
I am cold.
Cold, yeah, I can understand that. The weather has been pretty atrocious across pretty much the whole of the UK.
Yes, it's not great.
If you are listening to this episode from California, you're probably going to laugh at us, but we've had snow. I know they've had pretty bad over that way in America, but yeah, we've had a bit of snow. Myself down to the south and the east, we've had flurries of snow, but nothing settling. And on the other hand, you guys have had snow that pretty much looks like this week's episode.
Yeah, I had to dig my car out on Wednesday, and I drove away from the snow and then drove back into the snow because it moved north. It was horrible. I don't like the snow.
No. See, I love the snow, but only if it's dry and settles.
No, it's vile. I hate the stuff.
No, we've had absolute torrential downpour for the last 4 days, and then it will just randomly snow in the middle of it, and it's like, well, that's just pointless snow.
Yeah, I must say though, I was keeping on topic for this week's episode. I was reading an interview with Bella Ramsey, and they shot this week's episode in Canada in February, and it was minus 17 degrees Celsius, which to our American friends is a lot lower, but I don't know the conversion. But minus 17 to me is just death weather.
That's not even worth going out in. That's just nope. Anyway, so back to this week's episode. We need to talk about Ellie, the weak Joel trying to survive, and an interesting group of new survivors we've met.
Interesting is maybe not the word I would choose to use to describe them, but
no, I feel like the more we got to know of them, the less interesting and more disturbing they became.
Yeah, well, one individual, I can't speak to the rest of them, but one individual, certainly.
Is this David, their leader?
Yes. It was a really hard episode to watch this week. It was the beginning, I think I said in the group chat, the beginning was maybe a little bit slow for me. I was kind of thinking, this is just going to be a nice, not a filler episode, something's bound to happen, but, we'll just bumble along.
Yeah.
And as I was kind of thinking that to myself, I thought, no, if Stefan could hear me now, he'd be chuckling in the corner.
Yep. And then, now, I've got to be honest, now I've said this before on the podcast, I am got to a stage now where I know the rough outline of what's going to happen from the game, but there are still things that are happening that make me go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. This episode, I remember in the game, there is a few missions that you have to do where Joel is injured, so therefore you are playing as Ellie's character for a bit, and you go out into the snow, and I remember that sort of thing. Didn't remember this bit though, and I'm watching it like, oh my god.
Yeah, well, I think the feedback online has been quite 50-50 actually. I think a lot of people who've played the game said that this is very, very different.
Yeah.
And not to what that they were expecting. As somebody who hasn't played the game, obviously I don't feel that, and it was it felt like a natural kind of part of the story. But
Just
I think it's been
it's
been very divisive. I think this episode for game and non-game players.
Well, that's a good one. So we can actually find out someone's opinion because, as the listeners may have realised, it's just the two of us again this week. No Sam. However, the great Mr. Sam, or as one person on Twitter calls him, it's so much better without that farmer on the podcast. He has actually left us an audio message which I am going to play now for you all.
Hello, Stefan, and hello, Kaylee, and hello to everyone listening. Sadly, I'm recording this once again from my sickbed. Still no better. I'm told patience is the key. I'm not a very patient person, so want to get back as soon as I can to recording. I miss being on the show with you both, especially when I listen and you go in two-footed on my thoughts on an episode. So just very quickly then, this week, I loved it. Once again, the show continues to hit hard in ways I didn't realise it would. And also, it kind of, every week, it's like an emotional kind of roller coaster. One of the interesting things of the show, and I'd love you two guys to discuss this, is, you think about a typical apocalypse zombie type show. I know these aren't zombies, but, it's a very similar genre. They are certainly initially very much the threat. In this, we've hardly seen any. Joel and Ellie have managed to avoid them to large extents, but obviously we know they're there, we know it's a threat, but once again, it's a white religious dude causing all the problems. Sinister as hell, very well acted. I think young Bella Ramsey deserves every award coming to her. I thought she was phenomenal in this episode. Also, Savage Joel. So yeah, guys, discuss. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope everyone listening is keeping well, and I'll hopefully be back really soon. Take care, everyone.
So that was Mr. Sam's thoughts on this episode. I mean, he's really milking this injury, isn't he? All he's done is stubbed his toe.
Oh, in all seriousness, though, he is very poorly.
No,
so
we hope he gets well soon, and he is hoping. He is fingers crossed. Actually, the next podcast that will come out on Stuff and Things is The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2. And Sam is actually going to attempt to record this with me. And if he gets through this okay, fingers crossed, he will be back for the Last of Us finale.
Yeah, I hope he is. It's not the same. As wonderful as we are, I think we need Sam, don't we, to, even if it's just to piss people off.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the whole "yar, he's a young pirate fireman man" sort of accent, but it's not the same as having Sam on the podcast.
That was really good, by the way.
Oh,
well done.
So, we've got some bits from Sam to talk about there. Starting with Bella Ramsey's acting ability.
Oh, she is just incredible. That must have been such a hard episode for her to film. She's just amazing.
Very much kind of like the main star of this episode. And I think, her acting ability, I've seen it all over social media, just full of praise. Just absolutely full of praise for the way she's done this episode. There was lots of different emotions that she had to kind of portray throughout one episode. And I think she did it all absolutely perfectly. So
yeah, it was a real roller coaster, and I think that's a real testament to her. It takes a couple of days, week at the most to film this, an episode like this, and to be able to flip between the two is just, she's incredible. She is incredible.
Very well done. So let's talk about David then, the leader of this group. We don't really get a name for their group, I don't think.
No, I don't think we do, but I don't think we need one.
No.
We don't want to talk about them, but they're not nice.
No, not at all. I liked the fact that it kind of fed back into an earlier episode. In the episode Kin, we have Joel when he originally gets kind of stabbed. And it turns out that actually these men were one of David's hunting party that had gone out to try and find supplies. So it kind of linked in quite well.
So I didn't get that straight away. It took me a little minute to click, actually. Right back at the very beginning when you see that opening scene and they've got that weird banner, which is just weird. Yeah. Anyway, and it kind of, you get that culty kind of vibe from them. But when they're talking to the young girl about her dad, I at that point I had no idea that that's who they were referencing, and it wasn't until probably a good 20 minutes in that it clicked.
Gotcha.
And
I
don't know
that they
exactly.
were feeding her dad.
I knew straight away that they were, when they said that they couldn't bury him. I thought, right, well, they're going to eat him, which is ugh.
The same thing. My father-in-law behind me went, "Oh, leg stew."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah. But I wonder if, as a non-game player or any non-game player, that was the same, or whether anyone else figured it out.
Yeah, I kind of clicked it quite quickly that was kind of the route they were going to go down. I think the fact that I know I've mentioned The Walking Dead a couple of times on this podcast, but there's a group of people that they encounter in The Walking Dead who are doing the same thing. They're killing people to cook and eat them, which led to a great thing called Barbecue Bob.
Barbecue Bob.
Barbecue Bob. Yeah. He had his foot cut off, and they ate his foot in front of him, but he didn't tell them that he was infected, so he infected all of them, so they were all going to die. But he was Bob, so it was Barbecue Bob. And that was a running joke for quite a while between me and Sam, actually. But yeah, that sort of thing happens, and so we kind of meet the group as Ellie kind of leaves Joel in the house, takes his rifle, and she's trying to find food. He's taught her well. She shoots the deer, does quite well with that. But before she can get to it, that is where we're introduced to Dave and James from the survivors, who are now trying to carry the animal back to their village. I loved Ellie's kind of very grown-up, mature, just straight away, aim the rifle at them, turn around, put your guns down, goes over to the guns, takes the bullets out and all that. I thought it was very mature, kind of survivalist way of doing it.
That was very much I think what I learned in this episode is that Ellie has learned how to mimic Joel. That was a very Joel moment, and she's obviously learnt from him over the course of these episodes. Yes. And that exact moment was when I thought, that's the Joel moment,
It's the sort of thing, it's the sort of thing you can imagine Joel doing. So he's like emptying their guns and that sort of thing. But they kind of work out they can make a trade. As soon as they kind of suggest half a deer for some penicillin to try and cure Joel, I'm already kind of there going, well, that's a trap. That's got to be some sort of trap. David goes back, James brings back the medicine, she goes to Joel and injects him, and kind of I quite laughed about that she doesn't know how to inject penicillin. It's not something she ever would have done before.
Oh, no.
And it's the small details like that make me really happy in things like this. Because they could have quite easily, she could have gone back and done this proper like medical procedure because, it's based on a game, don't worry about it. Whereas actually she goes back and she's trying to get Joel to wake up because she's like, what do I do? How do I... she doesn't know how much to give. She doesn't know where to put it. She goes with the kind of obvious thing of, do you know what? I'm just going to inject this where the infection is.
Straight into that wound. Oh,
yeah, now that's going to sting. Like, at the best of times, that's going to hurt,
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that Joel wasn't particularly conscious or with it at that moment. It was, I don't do very well with stuff like that anyway.
No, they may have had a falling out if he had been conscious on that one. No, I'm the same as you. I don't do needles. I do not do... I've got tattoos, but blood tests are very different and things like that, and I don't do needles. So I'm watching that kind of going, oh, no.
Yeah. Oh.
But, yeah, so while she's doing this, we're kind of learning more and more about David and his group back at the shelters, the kind of little mini village that doesn't technically exist, that they've kind of created. So go on, give us your rundown on David and his men.
Well, I think they kind factor? Of I mean, he's just disgusting. You get that immediate kind of creepy vibe from him. I can't remember his friend's name. What's the guy he's with?
James. I don't necessarily get that from him. It's a very weird relationship that they've got. It's almost like he's kind of losing faith in him a little bit. Yep.
It feels very cult-like. And I don't know, he's got this weird kind of God complex, I think, David.
Doesn't he?
I am the savior. I am the one. But it's the moment when James has left to go and get the penicillin, and David's having a conversation with Ellie about believing in fate, or everything happens for a reason. It was at that point that I thought, hang on, there is something very sinister and disgusting about this bloke. The way that he's talking to her, he's almost trying to build a kinship with her,
Yeah.
Trying to get her to see that she is him, or she is like him. They've been through this joint experience and they've ended up at the same place, and it's fate. And at that point, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. It's got to be said.
Oh.
It was not good. But the rest of the group, you can see that they're kind of brainwashed, and the way that he treats the young girl and her mum, it's disturbing from the get-go. I think that's the only way I can
describe it. He backhands the little girl off her chair, and then explains to her why it was her fault, whilst the mum's going to get him some food. This is full on cult.
Yeah, classic narcissistic, disgusting, trash piece of human being.
Yeah.
It was not. That was really, really hard to watch, and I think that's maybe why this episode's divided opinion slightly.
Yeah, I mean, it was once. So they capture Ellie, and Ellie's kind of. Well, let's go back even further. So Ellie runs away with the medicine. She escapes with the medicine, and that's when she goes back to Joel and injects him with the penicillin, trying to help him get better. She must have realised that they were going to come back, because she's in quite a rush to get the penicillin in him, and then she goes outside, and that's where she sees David and has brought kind of like a hump party down to come and find Joel. As kind of he keeps saying about justice, and bring the girl back alive, but go get justice on Joel. Kind of eye for an eye sort of thing he's got going on there, but
yeah, and it's very much aimed at Joel, and you can see at that point, you can see almost feel what his intentions are for Ellie, which is just sickening.
Yes. He tries to kind of, he wants to capture her alive, even though the rest of the group want her dead as much as Joel. He wants her alive, and there's that little part of me that's kind of like, why are you so desperate to have her alive?
Yeah. It's really icky, and to be honest, there is nothing that Federer School could have taught Ellie that would have prepared her for what's about to come, and that's a really hard thing to watch.
Yes,
that fear in that moment just shows how isolated she's been.
Massively, yeah. So when she's captured and she wakes up in the cage, and it was her waking up in the cage is when I first went, oh no. I hadn't clicked anything kind of too much until when she woke up in the cage is when I suddenly started going, oh no, this is going to go.
Oh, right. See, that's interesting, because I picked up on it maybe a bit earlier than you did, and I wonder if that's just kind of female intuition, maybe.
Quite possibly. I know we watch it on Sky Atlantic in the UK, and before the episode started, there was actually a sexual content warning.
Yeah.
And so it was then when she woke up in the cage, that's when that warning suddenly went, and in my head I suddenly thought, oh no.
Here we go. Yeah.
Surely not. Like, damn. Okay. We are going to go down that route. Oh.
Yeah. It all happened really quick though, because at the point she was in the cage, I kind of thought it was going to be a bit of a beat down kind of moment. He's going to wear her down and get her to try and get her to kind of join them.
Yeah.
So almost like, CIA tactics, pull her fingernails out and, become one of us, a torture moment, rather than maybe what the intention turned out to be.
Yes, yeah, I went, well, the intention is a fun one because, I say fun one, but, you know, he does really try talking her around to join. You know, we're the same, we're both leaders. What can we do, like, as a group? And at that point, I'm starting to go, there's a lot of we's in there. We could do this, we could do that. What do you want her to be? Like, your wife in this society? Like, this is where I started going, this is disturbing now.
Yeah. And it's that mental manipulation that, you know, he's obviously very clever at that kind of thing. You know, he was a maths teacher. You know, he's had experience with young girls before. How, you know, is this the first time he's been through this process? Does he know what he's doing? I don't, it just makes my skin crawl. And you know, props to him as an actor to get that across in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very hard thing to do because you'd hope he's not like that in real life. So for him to be able to portray that quickly and make you think kind of, you know, is this a historic thing for you or is this a trauma response for you? And, it's just,
Yeah.
Icky. There you go. Icky. I've said it.
We got the icky.
I'll try really hard not to say it.
I think that's going to end up on a t-shirt. He's given me the ick. That's going to be a merchandising t-shirt, that is.
But this is a true ick. You know, this isn't icky. This is a what? Ick.
Very much so. Going back to when she's in the cage and having the conversation, he tries to give her some food, which I'm quite glad she kicks away.
Yes. That was a very much. Thank God she's done that. Ugh.
Because we know they brought the deer back, but we've already seen before the deer came back, like the big trays of meat going into the kitchen and stuff, and them kind of being a bit suspicious, but just kind of getting on.
Well, they're hungry. They need food. You're not going to question it, are you?
No, but when your brother or your father goes missing and all of a sudden you get stew, I'd hope someone somewhere starts to question. You know.
Yeah, but I think there was a fear there in that scene. You could see the fear. Those people are scared of David. Yeah. They're not going to question him for fear of retribution. You know.
And we've now seen he's quite happy to backhand someone out of the way.
Well, absolutely.
Ellie then sees the ear on the floor.
Yes. Oh.
That was kind of the confirmation that we needed of what was happening.
But did we need confirmation? Did we need the ear?
I love it. It's always an ear as well. It's never it's never anything. It's always just an ear, just laying there.
An ear.
Clearly, you can't cook the ears. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Ellie finds out, and Ellie goes crazy. As you can kind of expect, like I don't think we can really criticise her reaction for finding an ear.
No. I think anyone would react the same way.
Yeah. But they do the whole kick-off thing, and she's having a go, but he starts talking her down and starting talking her around. And was there a moment where you were watching this that you at any point thought that Ellie was coming round to it, or did you think the whole time it was a ploy from Ellie?
I think knowing what I know about Ellie as a character, she was very clever in that moment. I think if she had done a bit of a switch, it would have been for a reason. You know, I think she knew at that point what was coming and what was going to happen to some extent. So if she had have kind of gone along with him, it would have been, a fake out moment for Ellie.
And then it turns out actually she breaks his finger instead. And quite violent, not too bad with that. But obviously that ends up with her getting her head banged against the bars, falls to the floor.
Yeah, I did think at that moment that was gonna go slightly differently. I did think that she was going to get out at that point. Maybe that was a bit of hope, rather than what was to come. I don't know, but I think that was the kind of fight or flight response for Ellie. It was, and I think she scared herself at that point. I
think she started to kind of struggle of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And the idea that she suddenly realised, I might get cut up into little pieces here. I think that itself was the kind of wake-up moment for her, like, I need to get out. She almost does, but doesn't quite go to it. I love her on the floor, you know, Ellie, what? You can tell everyone that it was Ellie that broke your finger. I was like, yes, that's the attitude we need. That was the attitude that we kind of need that's going to get Ellie through this, you know? But yeah, so he's now broken the finger. And he has stormed out, leaving her kind of sat on the floor in a bit of a bad way, really.
Yeah, I think that's the first time we've really seen Ellie injured to that extent.
Injured and vulnerable. This is the first time that she's really seen very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is kind of understandable. She's literally locked in a cage and injured. Whilst this is happening, though, we go back to Joel, as Sam mentions it. Savage Joel. That is another reference to The Walking Dead, where we had Savage Rick.
Savage Rick.
It was Savage Rick. So, but he has been left down in the cellar with nothing but a knife for company. And they're searching the houses, and he sees that a bookshelf has been moved in front of a door. So, naturally, you know, moves the bookcase out the way, goes down to where Joel, we know he's kind of laying in a very bad way. What did you kind of think of the way Joel managed to defend himself?
I was waiting for something to happen, but I think his desperation to save Ellie was absolutely his motivation to get his arse up.
Yes.
And I really liked the fact that Ellie had the foresight to kind of leave that knife in his hand. Don't fall asleep. But I think putting that bookcase or that unit across that door was just enough. You know, that was enough to give him enough time to pull himself together.
Yeah, because he's laying on the floor, and you can see that you can see and hear the footsteps. So he knows they're above him, and that's when he starts to kind of come round. I think you're right. Them having to shuffle that bookcase out the way gave him enough time to kind of go, right, I need to get up. I've got to get up.
She knew something was coming. She's prepared. You know, Ellie's given me enough time to get my arse up.
Yep.
I need to do it now. I need to go and get her. She's going to be in trouble, you know.
Yeah, she's not calling down to say I'm here sort of thing, so it's definitely not Ellie. That means Ellie's in trouble. I need to kind of save Ellie. He does so by killing the first guy in the cellar.
That was brutal. That was,
yeah.
Really, really, really went for him.
But you can also see at the same time, like, he has struggled to be able to find the ability to kind of stand, and he's still in quite considerable pain, that's for sure.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you? You've been stabbed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine being stabbed is an easy recovery time, you know. But no, so he's got that one out the way, and then we're kind of left in this whole what does he do now situation. We cut back to outside, and we see a couple more of the survivors, we'll call them, I guess. The cult. The cult. Looking around. Now, they find the bodies on the floor, one of them being Joel, who kind of is able to capture these two people, tie them up in his, like, the living room of his house. Well, the next few scenes with Joel are fairly demonstrative of... You remember he had the conversation with his brother about the things we've done in the past and things like that?
Yeah.
This very much next scene, to me, kind of feels like this is what Tommy was talking about. Like, Joel has this ability to do what he does now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's survival mode kicking in.
As Savage Joel, as Sam calls it. But yeah, that is survival mode.
Yeah.
He has one tied up next to a fireplace and the other one tied up in a chair in front of them. So the guy in the fireplace can most certainly see everything that's about to happen. And, when he puts the knife into the guy's knee for not talking. Yeah.
But do you know what? I'm really glad, and I think you guys know pretty well by now, I'm not a huge fan of gore or, unnecessary violence. So I'm actually quite glad that we haven't had this kind of thing the whole way through. I think it would have really, really put me off. But it went well with this episode. And we needed to see it.
You're right. I think if we'd have had the violence throughout the episode, this scene wouldn't have had the effect it had.
No. And even throughout all the other episodes, if Joel had been this person from day one, I probably wouldn't feel the way I do about him,
Oh, completely. This episode happened because of what he needed to do to get back to Ellie, sorry. That's Bella and Ella put together. Ellie put together.
Bella and Ella.
Yeah. He needs to get back to Ellie, and this is kind of him going, right, where is she? Takes the knife out the guy's knee to put it in his mouth to find out where on the map he needs to go. Tells him, you must be telling me the same thing as the other guy tells me. And then stabs him and kills him anyway.
Yeah. Isn't that the second time we've seen him, that kind of thing? You tell me, then you tell me, and I'll know if you're lying. That's the second time we've seen that, isn't it?
Yep. It's not gone well either time.
No.
The other guy that's tied up says, well, I'm not going to tell you anything. To at which point Joel says, that's fine, I believe the other guy, and kills this guy as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was going to just leave them there, was he? I don't think that was ever going to happen.
He could have left them tied up. But then there's a small possibility they could have escaped and got back. So he took out the variables, I'd call it.
Yeah, yeah.
And, so that was very much savage Joel. And he is now on his way to find Ellie. Now, we'll cut back to the Ellie storyline. This is where this bit was getting difficult to watch now.
Yeah.
James and David have kind of burst into her cell and kind of got her. And they are about to cut her up into small pieces, what you believe. However, even when they lay her on the table with the knife, there was this horrible feeling inside where I was like, remembering that warning.
Yeah.
And made it very, very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it was. And it was, you can put trigger warnings on things all day long, but I just think there's going to be some people out there who watch that and it was horrific. Yeah.
No other word to put it, I think.
No. But again, it was, the tension that kind of scene built and that immediate wave of, affection for Ellie that everyone must have had at that moment. Now, I don't think that if I was playing the game and it was like that, I would have turned it off and I never would have picked up that controller again.
Agreed, yeah.
How was that scene in these moments different from the game? Because it feels a bit much for a video game to me.
Yeah, now, I've got to be honest with you, this is a part, if it is in the game, I don't remember. Now, whether that's because it's in the game and I've blocked that out, or this is something they've added for the TV show.
Right. So I know that the relationship, her and David's relationship was kind of different in the game, and that's the feedback that people have given on the episode.
Yeah.
But if it was anything more than that in the, I just don't know how it would have translated to screen.
Yeah, no, I do. We started this podcast with me being it's the best game I've ever played. I'm going to know everything that happens. By the time I got to episode 4 or 5, I was like, I don't remember this in the game at all. What is going on? Yeah, so that was fun. This being another example, I'm like, well, I don't think that happened in the game. Or did something similar happen in the game and I have just mentally blocked it out because it was awful.
Yeah, I just don't know. In a game, is that something that a video game creator would have put in? Would people want to play that scene out in that way with a?
Surely not.
You know? I don't know. I'm sure somebody listening will tell us.
Hopefully. Don't forget you can email into the podcast or jump on our Discord server. All the links on our social media. Sam at stuffandthangspodcast.com and Stefan at stuffandthangspodcast.com if you want to email in. I know a lot of people do actually email Sam. He's been getting a lot of emails throughout. He's ill not being able to record as well. So I know you're all using it, so that's always good. So if I have missed this out from the game, please do get in touch and let me know. But we now get a little bit of Savage Ellie.
Yeah.
Able to get the knife and the cleaver and drive it into James's side of his neck. That was yeah.
Oh.
When it just...
But you know what? I think at some point during that moment, I may have let out a little whoop or a cheer at that point.
I will believe you. I will believe you. Are you made to watch these episodes on your own now? Just out of curiosity. Like, is everyone else got, no, do you know what? Just let her go watch it. We'll watch it later.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan has kind of checked out of the whole series. I don't think he's watched an episode since episode 4. He absolutely loved, I mean, he's just literally just rewatched The Walking Dead, and this isn't for him. You know, it's not what he expected, and it's probably more up my street than his because of the lack of zombie action, I guess. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, I watch it on my own now, and I'm glad Logan decided not to go on with it because I couldn't have let Logan watch this.
No, probably not an episode for younger viewers. No. Especially with what happens next with David chasing Ellie into like the restaurant cafeteria area. This scene very quickly went dark.
Yes.
Like really dark, really quick. You've got Ellie crawling around, staying hidden.
Yeah.
And David just like, come on, come out, it's fine, don't worry about it, come on.
Yeah.
You know, we were only going to kill the other guy, don't worry, but now you've made it so I've got to kill you. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, we know Ellie's not stupid. I think she's very perceptive of people and their character. And, you know, and I think you see that with Joel as well. You know, she knows he's not going to hurt her, and she knew that from the beginning. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone. I don't think none of this would have happened if she didn't, you know, on some level, know and trust him. But she knew David from the beginning was not a nice guy.
Yeah.
So she was never going to get out and go, okay, I'll come with you.
Yeah, like so I've actually managed to find like the script part for this scene. And it's like he's searching for her, and it's like, there's no way out, Ellie, the doors are locked and I have the keys. Ellie, I know you're not infected. No one infected fights this hard to stay alive, so how did you do it and what's the secret?
Yeah.
Or are you just that fucking special?
Yeah.
No one likes to be humiliated. You don't know how good I am. You don't know what I could have given you if you just let me. And that was the kind of bit where I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was gross. Just amazing how just a few words can make you feel sick to the pit of your stomach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, you don't know how good I am kind of thing was like, oh, real cult leader. Sort of.
Yeah.
Nothing screams I'm a bad person like having to tell everyone how good you are and not evil.
Do you know what? It's really funny you say that because that is almost word for word exactly what I said to somebody else about this.
Oh, really?
You know,
it's true, isn't it? Like, if you're a good person, you don't have to tell people you're a good person. If you're a bad person, you tell people that you're a good person.
Yeah.
His next line he uses is, well, I have news for you. Neither of us is dying today. You see, I've changed my mind and I've decided you do need a father, so I'm going to keep you and I'm going to teach you.
Oh.
And that, yeah, and I'm still just kind of like, oh. Like, that, to use your terms, ick.
Yeah, you see, it's a very valid word.
It is like, it's the whole "I'm going to keep you," like she's some sort of pet or toy or something, and it just shivers of ugh. Then the next so Ellie jumps and stabs him. Gets thrown to the ground. Ellie starts trying to drag herself over to the meat cleaver, whereas David then kicks her, rolls her over, and climbs on top of her. Ellie's screaming. And then this line, "Oh, I thought you already knew that the fighting's the part I like most."
No.
And then, "Don't be afraid, there's no fear in love."
No.
And I'm just like, when you're like, I don't want to be watching this. Like, I'm like physically turning away from the screen. Like, this isn't right. This is. No. There's certain things you don't do in TV shows, and this is one of them.
Yeah, and that trigger warning is not enough.
No. And all of a sudden, I'm like, so that trigger warning, I'm suddenly like, oh my god, what the hell? David starts moving his hand down his own body, and you're just like, oh my god, what is going to happen? But Ellie manages to grab the meat cleaver. And approximately 22 strikes later, I don't believe David is in a good shape at this point.
No, but do you know what? The 2 would have been enough, but Ellie needed to get all of those emotions, all of the years of mistreatment, trauma, everything out, and he was the one that took it. And I'm glad that he was on the receiving end of that. But it's, you can just imagine in a scenario like that, after everything that's happened to you, even in the past 7 episodes, let alone the rest of your life, it's going to come out one way or another. And I'm glad it was that exact moment that she decided to just let it go.
I feel like she found a valid pincushion. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Approximately 22 strikes. It says
Did you
here.
Did you Google that?
No. It says here on the bit of scripting I've got. Ellie grabs hold of the meat cleaver and proceeds to get sweet justice by butchering David with approximately 22 strikes, screaming and crying in rage the whole time. Yeah. So she manages
I think it was a moment, wasn't it?
That was quite... And it was one of those ones where you only need to see Ellie being covered in the blood. You don't need to see anything else because your mind does the rest for you.
Yeah, and I'm really glad we didn't see the rest. I didn't need to see that.
No, I did not need to see the state of that body. She does get out, and as she gets out, Joel arrives. Joel has been looking around for her. He found her, her backpack and stuff, so knew she was there, and was really searching for her. And yes, he kind of he walks up behind as she's starting to run away.
Yes.
He kind of grabs hold of her, and Ellie's reaction, covered in blood, is "No, get off me, get off! It's me, realises it's him." And just absolute breakdown, which is fully understandable.
Yeah. It was the moment that she turned around, she just clings to him like a limpet, and it was his reaction that got me, not hers.
He's just absolute relief that he's got her back.
Even before he opened his mouth, you could see that, he's just broken and he's absolutely gutted that in that moment she saved herself.
Yeah.
He couldn't help her when he really needed to, but she needed that moment. She needed to do that. She needed to be the one to get herself out of that situation.
Yes. I completely agree. Joel is like, "It's me. Hey, look, it's me. It's okay. It's okay. Baby girl, I got you. I got you."
Yeah, that was my unraveling.
Did you cry?
I did.
Every episode.
Yeah.
I thought this was an episode. That's
just how I react to him now. He must be protected at all costs in everything he ever does, forever, the end.
Are we talking about the actor or Joel the character?
Both.
Oh, I have so many things I want to say, but I can't.
Oh, do dear. No, just,
Oh, next week's podcast is going to be fun.
This might be the end of our friendship.
Yeah, it's possible. There's about 55 minutes next week, I believe, and that could be the last time. But, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. That's the end of the episode. We've got one episode left. Next week's episode is called, let me click one, Look for the Light. And that is the season finale. Now, from what I am aware of, they are ending this season at the end of the first game.
Right.
Now, I'm pretty sure...
Is 55 minutes enough time to wrap this up well?
I'm not sure. Like,
are we going to get a stupid cliffhanger that's going to piss me off endlessly for the next year?
I hope not. I hope not, because it's going to do the same to me. Like, so as I say, I'm now at this stage where I'm like, oh, how much do I remember, and how much is going to be left? I know we've got a couple of really fun little bits in it, like Ashley Johnson is playing a character who did the voice of Ellie in the game.
Oh, fab.
So she appears in the next episode, so that's kind of like a fun little one. And according to my good sources at IMDb, it says here that Troy Baker, who played James in this episode, was actually the motion capture actor who played Joel in the games.
Ah, I love stuff like that. I love these little nuggets.
He thought he was going to end up playing like a clicker or one of the infected in the show as like a little nod, but he actually got a decent part in it to play a part.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Even if he was a bit of a weirdo.
I thought so. It's always nice when those sort of things... It helps. I think it always helps with those sort of things, just to have a little bit of something from the game in there. It's like a little nod.
It's just a recognition for them as well, like this is such a massive game. And then to be left out would almost make you feel a bit shitty, wouldn't it? But
yes,
to be incorporated in actual characters and not just unidentifiable clickers, I think is a really nice touch.
There's another, whilst we're going through the little bits, there's another little bit I've seen here as well, which I wanted to mention. When Ellie unloads the hunting rifles, she ejects 3 rounds from each rifle. This is a nod to the game, where 3 is the maximum amount of rounds that you can have in a hunting rifle.
Ah, okay.
So again, it's just another one of these little nods towards the game players that, if you weren't one of the game players, it hasn't added or taken anything away from the episode. If you are one of the game players, it's another one of those little nods, like Ellie with her torch last week, with the whole shaking the torch to make it work, having to shake your controller to make the torch work. It's little bits that kind of, it doesn't make a big difference, say, to yourself, who's never played the game, but when you have played the game, it's just a little bit of like a little smile for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's like these things are nice for me to learn. I like things like this.
Little trivia moments, but so next week is the final.
Yes, I am concerned about the time, and I guess I'm also a little bit frustrated at this point because obviously after last week's episode, Ellie found out, Ellie thought she was infected. I still don't have closure on the kind of end of that episode. I have so many questions, and I don't think I'm going to get answers to them.
No, I have a feeling there may be more questions coming up.
Right. Well,
but with a 45 to 55 minute episode, I'm hoping this is a long, like hour and a half, kind of like feature length episode.
Yeah.
But we will wait and see. Have you got anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing for me, going into the next episode and actually beyond the next episode is kind of, I'd really like to explore how the trauma of what's just happened to Ellie kind of plays out with her character. PTSD is a real thing for trauma survivors. There's different types, and I think the different types and how, that could impact Ellie's character either way. Yeah. So that's just for me personally, something that I would be keen to see, but I don't think we'll get that until season 2, perhaps. There's not enough time to go into that now.
Yeah, see, I'm hoping to see more of Tommy, the brother.
Oh, yeah, we haven't had a lot of Tommy, and I like Tommy.
See, I like the actor that plays Tommy is Gabriel Luna, who was actually Ghost Rider in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, which I loved.
Yes!
He plays Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider.
Now you've said it, it's clicked. It's been bugging me who he is.
He is Ghost Rider.
Oh, I'll be able to sleep tonight.
There you go. So I hope you get more of him in the next episode. And but yeah, we will wait and see. That is everything from us then, guys. Thank you everyone for listening as always. It's always a bit different without Sam here, but fingers crossed he will be back for the finale. I am going to attempt to edit this podcast now and get it live and do less damage with this one than I did with last week's Star Wars podcast, because we got 400 odd emails and comments.
Oh dear. Sam, come back.
Sam, come back. I know this will be a last little add-on to the podcast. So I am ever so slightly dyslexic. In the sense of when I see words, I find it very hard to kind of break the word. Like a word on a screen, I find it very hard to kind of break it down in the right places to make the word sound correctly sometimes. if it's not a word I know. So an example, when I was this is how I found out about it. When I was younger, my mother used to have like lots of shower products from the therapy spa.
Mm-hmm.
This took me years, and I mean years, because the words were all put together without any spacing.
Right.
So I couldn't see the word therapy. I could only see the word the, because that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
And so this week's episode of Star Wars, The Mandalorian, I got the title of it completely wrong because my brain just could not break down what the title of the episode was.
Right.
And we got a lot of abuse for that. So, for that reason, I would like to thank all the listeners to the The Last of Us podcast, because you guys don't send in as much abuse as the Star Wars fans do, and that makes me very happy.
You've got form with Star Wars. Come on, we know this already.
Yeah, the Star Wars fan base on Stuff and Thanks podcast do hate me for my pronunciation of certain things.
Oh dear.
And you guys don't on this podcast, so that makes me very happy. But yeah, Sam, come back soon. I hope everyone has enjoyed the podcast. It is a goodbye from me, and
goodbye from me.
Thank you for listening to the Stuff and Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on Facebook or online. Simply search the Stuff and Things podcast to join in our conversation every week.